Hello everyone, welcome to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. If you've been hanging around during the pre-screen splash thing that I put and you saw me quickly come on and then go off, is because I accidentally hit a button that I shouldn't have. But here we are. I hope you are having a great weekend. If you are still in your weekend, of course I am not. Linda is not. We are both in the start of our week, and I can tell you it's a pretty good start to the week, having gone ahead of you. We have got the most gorgeous day outside here in Brisbane, Australia. Please let me know where you're from in the chat. Tell us, what time it is and what the weather's like, and tell us a bit about yourself, especially if you're new. Hello to all of you who are watching this show as a replay. I want you to know that you're just as much, if not a bigger part of the show than those who join us in the weekly live chat, because so many of you watch this show as a replay. So it's great to have you join us. And you, of course, can join in by leaving your questions, if you have any, in the comments section as you're watching the show. Today we are doing a Q&A, and I love doing the Q&As. It's an opportunity for me to answer any questions that you may have about voice. I always humbly suggest that I do my best to answer the questions. I do not know everything, but for the most part, I'm able to answer most questions that get placed in the chat. So if you are currently live, hello to Mackenzie, and I saw Melvin's there. Who else have we got in the live chat? I know Linda's there, but currently it's Mackenzie and Melvin who have both already left us. Well, certainly Mackenzie's question is first. If you absolutely need, so we go through answering those, for those of you who are playing at home and you've never done this before, we go through answering your questions in chronological order, that is first in, best dressed. But if you add a super chat to your question, then we prioritize that. It jumps the queue and we answer your question, because we appreciate all of the contributions that people so generously give here to the channel. It's not a cheap thing to run, but I do appreciate your support with, sometimes it doesn't matter how much it is, just really appreciate you being able to give to the channel. And all the proceeds go back into running the channel, which we have been running for, well, the channel itself has been going since, I don't know, 2014. I say that quietly because that's a long time. Is it 8 years? We are, I think, about to enter into our 9th year. We haven't been quite doing the live show as long as that, but certainly the live show's been going for 6 or 7 years. We do these Q&As what works out to every second week, and we've fallen into a bit of a pattern where we get a special guest in every second week. Last week was, I have to say, a great personal honor and privilege to host as our special guest Professor Lynn Helding. She wrote a book that's just it's amazing to read. My brain hurts in a good way, in a very good way, but my brain hurts as I read this book. That suggests to me that my brain is having to really work, and that's a really positive thing. So The Musician's Mind is her book. It's fabulous. She joined us last week. If you missed out on that show, can I encourage you to really go back and watch that? Professor Lynn Helding is starting next year, she told us. She will be the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Singing. Now, there are 2 preeminent journals in Australia. Sorry, in the world, not in Australia. In the world for voice, for singing. And one of them is the Journal of Voice. That is really hard-end sort of academia, research, sciencey, laryngology, sort of gets in there as well. And then there's the Journal of Singing. The Journal of Singing is attached to the National Association for Teachers of Singing, the NATS group in the US, and which is the professional body for teachers of singing. And and the journal of singing is their journal. And anyway, it's a big deal. It is a big deal to be editor in chief. I think chief in editor. How do you say it? Anyway, and so what a wonderful privilege it was for not only for me but for us as a community to have someone like Professor Helding join us and so generously share of her time and her expertise. I learnt so much about how the brain works. I'm learning so much because I'm still only halfway through the textbook, but there is so much in there, and so I encourage you to watch that. Next week, we have someone who has become a real friend to me and also us here as a community. Professor Brian Gill will be joining us next week, and we're going to be talking about art meeting science. And Professor Brian Gill, I mean, again, we're not picking the low-hanging fruit here, everyone. Professor Brian Gill is top shelf, just like Professor Lynn Helding. And Professor Gill we're going to be talking about how these worlds don't need to be seen as in opposition to one another. They work harmoniously and in synergy with one another, and we're going to really deep dive into that next week. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the white bell icon, because it's that way that YouTube then sends you the automatic notifications to let you know that we're going live. And we do that every Monday, Australian Eastern Standard Time at 1 p.m. And after next week, we'll only have 2 more shows. We'll have 1 more Q&A, and well, it'll actually probably be 2 more Q&As, but we'll kind of call the last show for 2022. And I am very pleased. I don't think I need to announce it because I think we all know the show is continuing in 2023. I couldn't do without it. I love spending every Monday 1 p.m. with you all, and the community that we have developed here at Voice Essentials is, I'm just going to say it, second to none. I spent this morning just going into the Voice Essentials community Facebook group because I wanted to just catch up on what everyone's been posting. We've got a Secret Santa sing-along thing happening run by Kathy Snyder, which I just think, I'm Kathy, it's awesome. And well, I think we've got 28 or 29 participants, people who have all done a little bit of a Secret Santa. And if we include me, because I had already recorded, when Kathy came up with this idea, I had already recorded my Christmas song that I am going to share with you as a community. That had already been recorded. And so I just said, well, look, I've already done my song. So if we include me in the numbers, we've got 30 Christmas songs that are going to be being shared into the Facebook community group. If you are not a part of the Facebook community group, the Voice Essentials, if you search Voice Essentials community group in Facebook, you're going to find us. If you're not a part of us, you can join. It's a private group. We do that to really protect the culture and what we've developed as a collective. But it's not hard to join as long as you subscribe to the group rules, and you have to tick that you will do that, and then you can participate. And it's encouraging, it's warm, it's instructive. I do jump on, I do listen to people's recordings, I do offer feedback, and I would like to think it's of really high value from that point of view. But just as a fellow singer, I find it of high value and encouraging to share my songs into that space, because I just, it's just wonderful to receive the encouragement as a fellow singer. So if you're not already a part of that, I really encourage you to jump in and have a look at that. As I said, today is a Q&A. Before we jump in, I've got one very special piece of information that I do want to just let you all know about. and that is I want to tell you about this. Now, this is a very special thing I'm running again this year. It's already live. Now, Black Friday doesn't happen until this month, but I'm kind of trying to let the community know here at Voice Essentials, kind of give you a little bit of a head start. From now until the end of Cyber Monday, which it's late November, I can't remember the exact date, but I am running if you use the coupon code Black Friday 50, there is 50% off store-wide across the Voice Essentials website, voiceessentials.com.au. So you can use that particular. So I'm I'm hitting buttons as we go here. You can use that Black Friday 50 coupon code, and you get 50% off everything. So that includes the Pro bundle. It includes all of those things. So please take advantage of that. And that's a special early bird offer to everyone who's a part of the Voice Essentials community. And I wanted you to know about that. But what I also want to do is get into these questions, because, as I said, we've only got 3 more of these to go, and we want to make sure we spend as much time answering your questions as we possibly can. Okay, so Mackenzie jumped in first. She often does. Mackenzie, it's good to see you in the chat. Hadn't seen you for a little while. I know you were, I think I saw you in the chat last week, but I know you've been unwell, hence your question. Hi, Dr. Dan. My question is, how do I recover my full singing voice after viral laryngitis? I have my singing class on Wednesday, and I've been sick for a week now. So, Mackenzie, and you've also said in a subsequent comment that it's not COVID. So pleased to hear that it's not COVID. But COVID or not, in regards to your voice, COVID is taking, in my observation, twice as long to recover from as your everyday cold and flu, your garden variety cold and flu is. I mean, you know, colds and flus still really can make people very sick and can cause death, but COVID certainly seems to have a more severe impact on the majority of us. So recovering your voice after full laryngitis, firstly, you've got to deal with the infection. And so you've indicated that you had viral laryngitis. That's good to know. Laryngitis is an umbrella term that we often give to a voice in colloquial terms. That is, you know, in everyday language, someone, if they lose their voice, they'll say, I've got a little bit of laryngitis. And it may not be laryngitis. It might be simply some dysphonia that's been caused through yelling at a footy match or something crazy like that. So in this case, it's viral laryngitis. So we first and foremost need to deal with the viral infection. And it sounds like you're on the recovery road from that, which is great. So we have what's called the acute phase, and for your everyday cold and flu, perhaps a viral laryngitis, you're probably looking at somewhere between 3 to 7 days of actual acute infectious stage. But then we move into the subacute phase. That phase that follows it then can take, you know, a number of weeks to feel like you're recovering from, because your body takes an impact. It takes a hit from being unwell, and it takes time for you to reestablish full fitness, a sense of full well-being, and your voice is a good indicator of this. And so it can take, and my little rule of thumb is, it takes sort of times two. So if you, for example, were sick for 4 days in the acute phase, then you can expect it to take, you know, anywhere to 7 to 8 days after the acute phase finishes, it can take you another week and a half to really feel like your voice is back. So if your acute phase is, let's say it was 10 days, it literally can take now up to 20 days. Now this is a general rule of thumb. It's not an exact science. You won't find this in the textbooks. This is my little thing that, in fact, I made a video about quite some time ago. It's an observation. It's anecdotal, but it's roughly pretty accurate. My observation with COVID is that takes 3 to 4 times a recovery. And so that's something to be mindful of. So what we want to do when we've got this, this infection of the larynx, we want to deal with the infection, get past that. Then that subacute phase is all about helping to reduce inflammation of the vocal folds. It's a matter of inflammation can be retained fluid that the voice has built up as a protective mechanism to sort of try and protect itself. Perhaps you've been coughing. There can be a whole range of, things that leave the vocal folds swollen, the larynx internally all swollen up. And so we want to see that reduce. Now, we can help that along through a number of things. In professional spaces, one of the very quick, easy fix, but not eagerly recommended is some steroidal injections. That is not the go-to for most of us, especially as vocational singers, is because we just need to be a little bit patient and not sort of take the quick and easy route. Because when we take the steroidal injection route, yes, it's almost like magic. Suddenly the voice is back, but it has other pretty significant impacts over the long term. So that's one thing that can be done, especially if you're a professional singer. But the other route is one of patience. And so patience is all about seeing that inflammation subside. We can do that using things like steaming, helping to heat and get that retained fluid, that inflammation to become less, heavy in the throat and start to move through the cell walls and start to be released. We can use a nebulizer, so one of these fellows, which is, I was using it before, come on, stop. Anyway, I can't get it. Sometimes it doesn't start for me, which is a bit of a pain. But anyway, we can use a nebulizer where you breathe the steam. And that's a cold steam, and that's helping, again, to reduce the inflammation. The other thing you can do, Mackenzie, is to do some SOVTs, particularly some straw phonation work into a half-filled container. I've got videos, quite a number of them, about straw phonation, and so you could check those out. And Mackenzie, you've been with us here at Voice Essentials for long enough to know you know what I'm talking about there. And so it's all about just slowly but surely building up some voice use. But do not start this until you are relatively confident that you have entered that subacute phase. During the acute phase, your best option is rest. That is your best option. It requires patience. It requires a sense of delayed gratification. But I have to say to you, it is the best way. Rest the voice, wait for that infection to be essentially beaten by your body, naturally, and then move through into the subacute phase, and then start to slowly but surely get the voice moving, reestablish that sense of flow, because there's also a sense of physical activity that we have when we're creating our voice, our singing. And so we want the full facility of our body available to us, because if it is not fully available to us, then we're going to start creating maladaptive responses. We're going to start recruiting musculature that we don't want to recruit. We want to make sure that when we do start singing again, that we step back into our mode of holistic voice. And so it's really important that you allow your body the time it needs to heal. Mackenzie, I know you've only got 3 days, and that's not a lot of time, but hopefully those things that I do have a video called "How do I recover? How do I recover my voice after being sick" or something. I know Linda will find it, and she'll put we'll put a link in the description section later. But for now, you might want to go looking for that, Mackenzie, and there's a whole range of things in there. There's another video called "Sore and Tired." Try this if you have a sore and tired voice. It's titled something like. I don't know, there's nearly 700 videos up there. I can't remember the name of all of them. And so that's more talking about vocal fatigue, that video. But there is still some really good things that you can be doing and putting into practice from that video, as well as the stuff that we are talking about here. Let's come over to... I'm going to come to Tammy's question. So Tammy has asked, is there a song that can show a wide range of singing techniques or scale that I can use for an audition as a female to showcase my voice? I just want a general song I can practice minus my tone. You want a general song that you practice minus your tone. So you're wanting to strip away the tone and just work the notes is what I'm getting from that, Tammy. And so I hope I'm interpreting that correctly. And that would suggest to me that you're kind of wanting to do pitch accuracy work / melisma. Now, in fact, interestingly, Professor Helding last week talked about the fact that she prescribes working on melisma with her classical singing students. And melisma is a good thing to do, but we do just want to be, what's the right word? As contemporary singers, it's funny. A lot of my students, I'm actually often getting them to learn to sing straight before, instead of doing the melisma, because so many of our modern genres in contemporary voice have a lot of riffs and runs, is the word we use in contemporary voice, which, you know, is synonymous with melisma. And that's all those, hey, all that sort of stuff. So you can certainly do any song, wide range of singing techniques. I mean, there's so many different... I'm trying to really narrow down what would be a good thing. There is an exercise on Voice Essentials 1, which is exercise 14, and it goes like this. So it is workshopping a number of techniques. It's workshopping vowel shape. It's working pitch accuracy, because each 5-note group sitting over each single vowel is going up in semitone steps, and then on the track the whole phrase goes up a tone. Additionally, it's workshopping I guess the integrity of each note, because it moves quite quickly. The temptation is to sort of slur your way through it, but it requires integrity of each note. And so you've got to be really accurate, not just with pitch, but also with your phrasing And then the elephant in the room is it's all the one single phrase is done in one breath, and on the track you only get given what equates to 1.5 seconds to take a preparatory breath leading into the next phrase. It's not easy. It's actually quite a challenging activity. And so that might be a scale, an exercise that you might want to check out, Tammy. I think you might find that helpful. Perhaps you've already got the Voice Essentials 1 singing exercises. If you don't, you can visit the voiceessentials.com.au website and you can download the tracks there. I'm going to come over to here and type in this. So this is beans on verse. Beans on verse? Maybe? I'm not sure if that's how we say it. That's how I'm saying it. Beans on verse. I've been trying to blend high chest and softer notes. The only way I could avoid crashing down had to be to ease off the throttle and push even more air out. Not sure if I'm doing it right. You probably aren't doing it right. You do have to ease off the pressure as you get higher. That what happens is as we get higher, because the vocal folds are often getting longer and therefore more taut, more tighter. If you think of a rubber band, bong, yeah, the rubber band is getting a bit tighter. As a result, it's causing an increase of pressure directly below the vocal folds in the subglottal space, as the air is being fed up through the trachea from the lungs, and that has an increase in pressure. Now, what we tend to do is then push harder because our body is giving us that sensory feedback that it needs more effort, more drive, and we have to learn not to overtly, apply extra pressure to those higher notes. So we, however, want to maintain an even flow. So we've spoken about it many times on the channel before about what we're doing is learning to balance PTP with PTF, maintaining or reducing our sense of PTP, phonatory threshold pressure, while we maintain an even flow of phonatory threshold flow, PTF. And so we want to reduce which is what you're saying, I think there, where you ease off the throttle, don't push, but keep the even flow of air as you go higher. And then that allows you, if you're wanting to go for, to blend a high chest and softer notes, what you're trying to do there is manage a balance of what many people refer to as mix, where you move between the two. Yeah. There's a great exercise on Voice Essentials 2 called Messa di Voce. Many people refer to Messa di Voce as the king of all exercises, and it is in its design. It's a single note, and it simply has a dynamic movement from very soft to very loud, back to very soft. This is a very challenging thing to do. It's not something that we introduce in the Voice Essentials program until halfway through, because you've got to get a whole heap of other stuff right. You've got to make sure your body alignment is in check. You want to make sure that you can shape a vowel correctly. We want to make sure that you are able to manage your air appropriately, because if those foundational techniques are not in place, you are going to try and do it all here. And this is not designed to do all of that work. Can it do it? Yes, but the wear and tear on it having to carry all that responsibility is significant. And so we want to distribute the activity across the whole vocal system and manage that dynamic movement. And when we do that dynamic movement in that way with the messa di voce, we are also learning to move the voice through that heavy, short and a dominant activity into a length and a dominant activity and back. So it's moving through that mix phase. So I hope that's helpful. Beans on verse. Beans on verse. I'm trying to make sense of what is beans on verse. Anywho, it's a cool name. I just don't know what it means. Okay, well, we've got a question here from Melvin. What have we got here? Melvin's saying, I have seen your videos and getting better at managing head voice, which is cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Melvin. Any tips on having seamless transitions between head and chest in a song? Firstly, you've got to be able to develop, as you are already, I think, Melvin, using the Voice Essentials exercises, you've got to be able to manage your register, removing a song. The beauty of an exercise, a singing exercise, is it strips away the necessity for style. I mean, you can add style into a voice, into an exercise. So, but we can strip that away and just leave us with the technical, mechanical / acoustical values required to navigate and negotiate note movement. And that is of high value when you really, there's a lot of value in stripping things back to their bare bones and really workshopping those fundamentals. When we do that, we can really get in and tweak and really establish some really good muscle memory play. So it's important to put the song aside for a second, just get to an exercise. So you start developing registers. In Voice Essentials, we workshop specific registration first and foremost, just specific registers. So we might workshop the lower register, doing some belt work. We might do some upper register work. For example, in exercise 9 and 10 and 11, we start to move the voice up into that upper register and really play in that upper space. And then what we do is we start towards Voice Essentials, end of Voice Essentials 1, we start to establish that sense of movement, that free movement, right through the range using lip bubbles and tongue trills. So SOVT work, using the voice to smoothly move from bottom to top, and for the voice to be able to move through those gears. They're not gears, but sometimes it's helpful to use that as a metaphor, as to move through those gears smoothly, those gear changes, and to have the voice then come back down. And it's as you learn to do that without any lyric, just on bare notes, that you can start to learn what do I have to do with my voice in combination with my airflow, in combination with keeping my body free, that if I were then to apply it back into a song, and it could be any song, to be able to go looking for those same attributes within the song, having learnt to manage the voice in the bare essentials of just the technical work. Remembering that in contemporary voice, it does bear noting that in contemporary voice there is no right or wrong. In classical voice, typically you would be required to have no exposed transitional breaks. So the classical school refer to those transitional spaces as the passaggio, and ideally we don't want to hear that passaggio at all. There should be just this smooth movement, bottom to top, top to bottom. Actually, in most classical voice, it would actually be smooth movement, top to bottom, bottom to top. That's another story for another day. The point being, in contemporary voice, at times we want to hear that transitional shift. we want to hear what appears to be a break, because at times we use that as a stylistic feature. I remember there was one song that I was learning back in my uni days, back in the 90s, and the difficulty I had, because my first 2 years were at the Queensland Conservatorium were classical voice, and so I'd spent all this time workshopping the voice to be smooth through my registered transitions, and I came to this song that I was learning to sing at a wedding, and its actual feature was a really clear, distinct shift that you could hear and make a big deal of. And I found that so hard. I got it, but it took a lot of practice. And so it's really important that we understand there's no rights or wrongs in contemporary voice. It's just what is the aesthetic feature being required of the singer in the said song, or that the singer is wanting to bring as an aesthetic feature to said song. So that's important important to note. The other thing too is that Melvin's actually just made a note about COVID, and this is sort of relates back to Mackenzie's question at the very beginning of the show. I noticed that after losing my voice to COVID and recovering it, even my ear for identifying pitch has weakened somehow. Does that make sense? Look, with COVID, I don't question. I don't question a lot. There is so much new human experience that we're all having with this that I don't want to question that. I would want to investigate that further, Melvin, if you found that that was a lasting impact. We wouldn't want to simply just settle for that as something that is to just be taken for granted that your hearing's impacted. So certainly we want that to recover as well. There is so much interconnected stuff going on with our vocal system, and our ears are a big part of that vocal system. And it's interesting that often our ears are not given the attention that they perhaps deserve in the process of our singing. I know we talk about, you've got to be able to hear yourself and those sorts of things, but ear health is a thing, and our ear health is affected by illness. It is affected, I dare say, by COVID for some people, and so you'd want to be talking to your licensed healthcare professional about that, Melvin, if it's continuing to be a challenge. Okay, so let's go to some. I want to just answer a question, and I can't bring it up now, but I do want to answer a question that was here from Timati from back on October 24, which we didn't get to. And they write, how to warm up your willingness and going for it after you warmed up the body and voice. Sometimes I feel ready but not buoyant and energized to go for it like I should. What a great question. And it's so intuitive, because sometimes we don't feel that sense of energy underpinning the voice. Sometimes, and I know I experience this a lot as a professional singer, when you're being paid to do it as a job, you don't have a choice as to whether you feel great about anything, let alone your voice. You've just got to get up and deliver. And so the learning of just being able to go to put yourself into that mindset and step up, eyes and teeth, as my friend and awesome singer Renee Sutter used to say to me. Eyes and teeth, Daniel, eyes and teeth. And it's almost, in those scenarios, it's almost like you got to fake it till you make it. In avocational singing, we fortunately don't have that sense of pressure for the most part, in the sense that, you know, and I'm referring to avocational, for example, if you're a contemporary worship singer and you're singing for your local church, you're not being paid on a Sunday morning, but you still got to get up and do it whether you feel like it or not. Not if you're sick, incidentally. We're just talking about, you know, the emotional standard. But you, as a avocational singer that is not required to really to present for performance, sometimes you do need to just recognize that it's not going to be happening today. And it's actually okay to miss a day. It's okay. This is only singing, you know, and that might come as a surprise to hear me say that, but it is only singing. It'll be there tomorrow, and tomorrow will be a new day, and there's every likelihood, you know, mental health issues aside, you know, there's every likelihood that tomorrow will be a new day and you'll feel much better about it. Now, perhaps you want to really wrestle with this personal sense of not feeling ideal, and yet you want to really practice moving through that. Well, I find often in those situations, actually the hardest part is just the first few steps. I find that when I just get myself singing and just get myself moving, then that process of forming sound starts to release the endorphins, the serotonin, and before you know it, I can find myself feeling much better than I did even 5 minutes prior, because now I've got that energy that comes from the vibrations of my voice, the sensations of my voice, and things start to turn around. I'm not saying that happens every time, but more for me, more often than not. And I'm not saying that that's what has to happen for you, but you might like to give that a shot. Timoti. Do I say that? I don't know. Timoti. Fortunately, you can't see the spelling on screen, so you don't know whether I'm saying this correctly or not. But I do hope Timoti that works. We've got another question here. I wanted to get to that question there, but this is from Alonzo. Alonzo, your name is a lot easier to produce, to say, pronounce than Timoti's name. Why do opera coaches refer to chest voice as head voice, while head voice in contemporary refer to it as falsetto? Oh, Alonzo, what you have happened upon there, Alonzo, is the crazy world of singing terminology. Can I encourage you to go and check out my video, Alonzo, on, it's called, I think it's called Head and Chest Voice and Mix. Search it up on the channel, and I kind of step you through some of those terminologies and help you understand that. It's a little bit, it can be a little bit confusing. Once you kind of understand and you kind of introduced into how we got from chest voice and head voice to some of the new language that's used in a lot of the literature, it kind of makes sense. You'll hear me on the channel often using all of the above, because I understand that all of the above, including the use of the terms head voice and chest voice, is still a relatively used, it's actively used in the modern colloquialisms. So go and check that video out, Alonzo, because I think you'll get a lot out of that. And we really look at voice registration, because that's actually what this topic is all in. But it is helpful to understand those sorts of things. Well, I've looked down at the time, and lo and behold, I've been talking for the last 45 minutes. So we're going to call it a day. We're gonna draw a line under it. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Next week, we have got Professor Brian Gill, as I said earlier. Don't miss it. I just love having Professor Gill on. Do you know why? Because, trust me when I say, this gentleman is top shelf, but he doesn't bring that air of superiority. He is so down to earth. He's the sort of guy that you want to just share a coldie with and just really enjoy his company and talk voice. And we won't have the coldie in hand next week, but we will talk voice, and we'll do it with a lot of warmth, a lot of really good information when we talk about how art meets science and how it is actually the perfect match. I hope you'll join us next week, and you need to remember, hit the white bell icon after you've subscribed, and that way you'll get a reminder next Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I hope you all have a great week. Hit the thumbs up button as we finish. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.